Welcome to Breakfast with Birch and Bat, a conversational podcast about tabletop RPGs.
And anything else we want.
With your hosts, me, Arella.
And me, Kyle.
Good morning.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, how's it going?
It is a little bit later than we usually are supposed to be posting. I'll just start with that.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Only a little bit.
Stuff happens. You know, life happens, especially with the world going on the way it is.
Yeah, listen, the world... One thing that is nice about starting this amid, like, both a global pandemic and just, like, everything kind of falling apart, like, yeah, it's hard to keep up with a lot of stuff. We got a lot going on.
We're here now.
Yeah.
Today, we are going to be discussing one of, like, your favorite things.
Definitely one of my favorite things. I'm real stoked to talk about this.
It's something that I don't have a lot of practice in anymore, but it's something that I took part in a lot when I first started, and that is the crafty DIY stuff that we bring to tabletop games.
Absolutely. So we're talking about maps, like making our own maps. We're talking about homemade miniature kind of stuff. We're talking about any time that you sort of like put a little bit of craftiness into your game to make something physical.
Yeah.
Because I got to say, I've been running digital games for probably the past couple of years.
Same.
Probably longer than that.
Yeah.
Like the last like big group in-person game I ran was years ago. And when I did run those kind of games, listen, I spent a lot of money at Michael's and at various craft stores getting all kinds of stuff for games.
Yeah, the first few games I ran were physical. Mm-hmm. The rest were all very much online, which in my opinion, you can bring DIY to online games.
You can.
So my experience is going to be more in that area.
I also have a bit of experience in that avenue as well, because I currently run a game via Roll20, which is still kind of new to me, but because I'm running 4th edition D&D, which is very heavy on maps and battle grids and like tokens and miniature type stuff, I've made a lot of custom maps in Photoshop and a lot of like player handout kind of stuff.
No, I've seen the stuff you make. It's crazy the amount of time you put into that.
Oh, you should have seen me when I was making for like an in-person group.
Let's start there then, because you have the most experience of the two of us with that.
So one of my favorite aspects of Dungeons and Dragons specifically, but more so like just tabletop games in general, is the physicality of it. I like that it's like kind of like board game kind of stuff, where like you get around a table and you interact with tiny things, like either tiny plastic miniatures or little figurines or boards or maps and that all kinds of stuff. When I first started playing D&D in earnest, like beyond just the usual, like, oh, we played a couple times in high school, I started playing with 4th edition. Yeah. And 4E, you kind of need miniatures and a battle grid to play that game, because it's like a miniatures game. Right. And because of that, all of my home group players were used to 4E. So when we eventually made the switch to a homebrew game, and then later 5th edition, they all still wanted miniatures. They like that was the game for them. Right. So I was like, okay, this is an opportunity to like make a whole bunch of stuff. Biggest thing I would make for those games was homemade dungeon tiles.
That's awesome.
Somewhere in my blog, there's a tutorial on how to do them. What I would do is I would take a huge amount of cardboard that I would basically get from anywhere. I'd spray paint it black. I would cut out strips to make like sides of walls and everything, basically to like create the illusion of like a raised surface of a wall. Spray paint it all black, and then spray paint it with stone texture paint, so it was tacky and it was textured to look like stone. From there, I would make little hatches on the specific points to make sort of a makeshift grid, and then from there, like, they were in all kinds of Tetris-y shapes and sizes and stuff. I could make huge dungeons with it.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, and I eventually amassed like a small collection of like those little plastic pre-painted D&D miniatures. Those things are a lifesaver, by the way. I've never been the kind of guy to like get old pewter miniatures and paint them and build them and stuff. I would love to, but that's also a level of devotion I don't know that I've got.
Fairly expensive too.
Yeah. Also takes up a lot of space.
It does.
I ended up, again, like so many other DMs, I had just a huge Ziploc bag filled with assorted miniatures.
Yeah. We have a few assorted bags of them too. Because my other partner is very much into having all the little miniatures. Like, he's a Warhammer boy.
He's a Warhammer guy. I love looking at his Warhammer stuff. He's an amazing painter.
But he also does that for tabletop, though. So we have box upon box of little plastic boys.
God, we got playing more physical D&D
We
at
do.
home.
We have so many. We also have, like, those little cardboard dungeon tiles and, like, the...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We have all those.
I said I was about to say way back when, but it has almost been 10 years since 4th edition first came out, I think.
Yeah.
They produced like a big old box of heavy cardstock dungeon tiles. I remember I had one of those. Best product I'd ever owned that I think like official Dungeons and Dragons made was something called the Monster Vault. It was literally a small little sort of monster manual with like 16 cardstock sheets of just tokens, just little monster faces.
We have the Pathfinder version of that.
Yeah, the Paizo stand-up ones. Those are also really, really good.
Yeah, those are really awesome.
Yeah, I think I like those less because I kept losing the little black plastic stands they go on. Whereas like just the tokens, if you lose that, they're gone forever. You don't notice them. But I was always running out of those little plastic stands.
Yeah. No, both of those are really great. But like the DIY ones, I've seen people just like paper doll stand it.
And it's so cool. Like, I love that.
I've seen people make their own acrylic ones or their own resin ones using molds that you can get from like AliExpress or something. And
the simplest DIY thing I would do for my games as a dungeon master, especially for a lot of combat, I would make what I called hanging tags. These were just little slips of paper that I would hang on a dungeon master screen. On one side, placing the players, was a small illustration of their character, or monsters, or whatever I was using. And on the opposite side, facing me, I wrote down stats, like armor class, hit points, like bonuses and stuff. It gave me an opportunity to, like, if I had a new player who was playing a new character, gave me an opportunity to draw their character super fast.
I like that.
And that was always fun. I think I feel like a lot of my players appreciated that, and I hope they did, because, like, it's always super fun to do.
Oh, yeah. I'd see, you tell me about all your ideas and all the things you did. I'm so jealous of them because I was a person who did the extra things that didn't end up mattering.
What do you mean?
Well, we used the grid paper and I would spend hours drawing the maps, which those were fine. They're functional. But the things I would really dedicate my time to were like the overworld map we didn't play on, but we ended up hanging on the wall.
Oh, but that's great.
Because I went the route of, there's a beach over here. I'm going to use actual sand. This is a forest, so I'm going to glue cotton balls and then put a finish over them and paint them green. It was a 3D topical map.
That's so good, though.
And it was completely unusable by an actual play. But
no, you could totally move like some small miniatures over that and everything. I love that it was 3D.
Yeah, completely 3D. Like the mountains were like really peaked and everything. It took me forever.
God, I'm the biggest sucker in the world for that kind of stuff. Like, as someone who is, whenever I play games, it's mostly been with folks who, not that they're not putting in effort, but that, because like DMing is effort, but like
completely.
It was very basic. Not a lot of maps, not a lot of other things, like, and not a lot of interactive elements.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just the biggest sucker in the world for those homemade kind of things. Like, it's just the charm of it is so good.
Does making food count?
Yeah.
Okay, then I was a master at making DIY stuff for my group.
Yeah.
I would do like a basic map people could follow with like different things in it that I had notes for. And then I would also have them all chip in like $5. You give me $5 for next week's dinner and I make a giant dinner for everyone to sit around the table and eat.
Oh, so you're the best dungeon master. You win. No, I'm throwing my hands up. You win.
Made lasagna one night with a side salad and garlic bread.
That's so good.
And they were all just like, "This is great."
Yeah. No, I mean that is the underappreciated thing. Like my home group back in Toronto, I think half the group was vegan, and it was basically like we would always have like a whole bunch of vegan food and everything that they would make. I was a DM. The thing that I ended up providing most of that was like I made drinks. That was one thing I was able to do. Sometimes it went over super well. Like, I remember one tropical session when I made margaritas.
Oh, cute.
And, like, people really like that. One session, because I was a cocktail nerd at the time, I was like, I'm going to make old fashions for the group.
No.
And, like, no, for a group that is, like, not super alcohol forward about that, I was like, no, these are gross. And I'm like, Okay, yeah, fair.
We like the tropical with the for me though.
Mm-hmm.
If you handed me an old fashioned, it'd be like my bardic nature says no. I don't consume this.
Yeah, well, I learned.
This is a wizard drink. I don't mess with this.
But God, I made, especially for that home group in Toronto, and a lot of it's on my blog. I'll find the links to include in the show notes for this. I made
We have show notes.
I'll find it put somewhere when we
Yeah,
post
okay, because
this.
we don't have show notes. I don't know what production you think I'm running here. It's not one of those.
I'll include some links and everything when this gets posted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I made a whole bunch of like basically vehicles. Like it got to a point where like the sessions were getting more elaborate. I would draw on wet erase maps, like custom maps for everything. But then I started getting really crafty. I decided, oh, I've got an elven army that's coming in on like small miniature airships. I'm gonna have to make them. Mm-hmm. So using 1 liter soda bottles, sort of miniature dowels, and a lot of cardboard and a lot of craft paper, I made small airships.
That's so cute.
Like spray painted the bottles red to be the balloons. I used the small dowels and everything to like as rope to attach them to a cardboard base, and I basically like 3D made a little cardboard ship with like 6 squares inside of it.
I love that.
Yeah, I made a couple of them, and they were like fully workable. They were intact enough that they could be moved around and elevated. It was really, really cool.
That sounds awesome. Like I love shit like that. That's like the more 3D and interactive it is, the better.
I think my crowning achievement was making the best gelatinous cube miniature.
Yeah, I love your gelatinous cube miniature.
I wish I still had it. I think I gave it to one of my nephews as a birthday gift, along with a bunch of other D&D stuff, because he was just getting started in it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's super simple. It's just a bit of hard plastic, like a clear plastic from the inside of like a see-through binder or some other kind of thing where it's like slightly textured clear plastic. Mm-hmm. You cut out basically like a plus sign out of it, score the edges of it, fold it so that it forms like a small cube, but with the bottom open, and then you just go to town on that thing with a bunch of hot glue. Like you glue the sides together, then you texture it, then you make a whole bunch of hot glue around the side, because hot glue's mostly translucent. Yeah. And yeah, suddenly you have a 3D gelatinous cube that can also be like picked up and put over top of miniatures and monsters and things. So if you get absorbed in it, you can actually put a miniature inside.
I think that's cool.
It's so good.
There's alternate ways to do it, like now. For anybody who's looking for ideas like this, you can get for like jewelry and miniature making and sculpting and things like that. You can get little silicone molds that are cube that have an insert to make it hollow inside. And then you can go to Michael's and just get a thing of resin or get it on Amazon.
If you want that shit to really last, like that's the way to do it.
If you want it colored, you can like also, they have resin coloring and things. You can like make a completely translucent hard cube that's not going to go anywhere.
That's so good.
And that, I highly recommend resin for a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
If you can find the molds for it. Molding resin is more simple than you think it is. Mm-hmm. It looks scary. They have YouTube for a reason. Watch a couple tutorials, you can nail it. It's fine. And you can make all kinds of really cool, intricate things for play. And some of them you can even give to your players to keep. And that's a keepsake they get to take home with them.
Absolutely.
Which I think is awesome. Mm-hmm. If you're really crazy, you can spend $70 on a dice set mold and make your own custom dice for your campaign.
Oh my god.
That's me, though.
Did you actually do that?
No, I came close to it, though. I tried to.
That's so cool.
I would have.
Honestly, that would have been an amazing keepsake.
If I'd had the money, though.
Yeah.
If I'd had the money, I would have done it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I learned how to do a lot of my stuff. Some of it I just had to sort of jury rig and make myself. Yeah. But like the gelatinous cube, I made that from a tutorial I found on YouTube. Dungeon tiles were kind of similar. There's a lot of resources out there. But yeah, biggest sort of DIY crafting achievement I think I made was the finale of my home game back in Toronto. Yeah. That campaign never really had a name. It's the one I talked about a bit in, I think, episode 1. Mm-hmm. No, episode 2. Final session of that involved a spelljammer ship and moving across the astral sea, which involved making a Spelljammer ship for them
Good
to
Lord.
get onto it. So yeah, I made a full size, for their miniatures at least, a full size sort of like space going airship.
Cool.
So it was big cardboard ship, like large sides, rigging. I made foil wings along the side of it. They also, like an unfoldable foil sail for it, along with cardstock, sort of bound in cardboard, fins along the side.
That's awesome.
It turned out so well.
That's so cool.
Like, it had layers to the hull and everything to give it that sort of like wooden texture and feel to it. Best thing I did to go along with that was they fought some beholders along the way.
Hell yeah.
I made my own beholder miniatures out of a paperclip armature and some purple Sculpey.
That's awesome.
No, you know what? I think it was Crayola Model Magic.
You'd use what you got.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff's great to work with. If you're ever thinking of making custom minis and you have no idea what to do and they can be big enough, Model Magic is great. It's self-drying. You don't need to bake it. It's real good. Mm-hmm. But they had googly eyes for eyes. Like, I molded the Model Magic clay around like the eye stalks, around like small googly eyes for the small eye stalks, and then one real big one in the center of it.
That's silly.
Oh, they're super cartoony and goofy, but like you could shake them around and the eye would go.
That's really fun.
Oh yeah, I wish I could. I'm gonna have to make those again at some point because they're really, really fun.
All miniature stuff I did like that, I used actual polymer clay for. Because at the time I had my polymer clay jewelry store. Mm-hmm. So I had an abundance of polymer clay and all the things to use with it.
Yeah.
And so making tiny little figurines and custom things for my campaigns was no problem for me. Because I could just sculpt them with what I had.
Mm-hmm. You were also really, really talented with polymer clay,
Thank
too.
you. I appreciate it.
Because you've made me a couple of polymer clay miniatures.
Yeah.
Like I have one that Arella made for me of one of the villains from a book I wrote, Blood and the Chocolate, Lucia de Castillo. Mm-hmm. She made, like, accurate to the illustration in the published book. She made me this miniature of her, and it's amazing.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, I've used it in games before when
That's
I ran
awesome.
that adventure. It's wonderful. You also made me a Rose keychain at some point of my character Rose. It's adorable.
I haven't worked with polymer clay in a while, but that was an element of game making that was there for me. Mm-hmm. I'm more a papercraft kind of person though.
Yeah.
Like right now in the game that you run for me, my entire character sheet is in one of those dot grid journals. Mm-hmm. And I keep everything in there, and it's all artistic and everything. But
yeah, you're really, really good at imbuing like a lot of that home stuff with like a wonderful DIY crafty flair.
Yeah. One thing I did for same character actually when she was in a desert campaign, she got her hands on a deck of many things.
Oh, cool!
And I looked at my DM, other partner, and I was like, "What do I do?" Because I don't have an actual deck, but I think this would be really cool to have. And it's all desert themed. Because he explained that it was a desert themed deck, and I'm like, okay, well, I can either imagine that or I can make it. And I spent like a week cutting out individual sized cards.
Oh my god.
And the only thing, because I was poor as shit, I was the most broke ever. Mm-hmm. I had like half dried up Sharpies, and that's all I had. And I spent the entire time doing desert themed deck of mini cards, and then I laminated, I'm using finger quotes, laminated them with duct tape, with not duct tape, but packing tape.
Oh my god. I've definitely done something similar in the past, but like, that's amazing.
But the back of the cards weren't shiny enough for me. And so I just used my star glitter nail polish that have chunks of stars in them.
That's so good.
It made it look a starry night on the... Oh, they're awful. Let me just say they're awful.
I mean, like, listen, when you make that kind of stuff for early games and things like that, like, it does come across very crafty. Like, it's very, like arts and crafts kind of look. I think that's charming. I think that makes it feel like... It makes it feel homemade, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, it took me a while, and I'm proud that I did it, but like looking at it now, I'm like,
well, I mean,
child.
That's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's one of those like D&D milestones. Like, if there was ever achievements for like long-term D&D play, making your very own deck of many things that you homemade is definitely one of them.
Yes.
God, at some point I would love to make our own Taroka deck for our game.
The only thing keeping me from making my own Taroka deck is remembering how long it took me to make the deck of many things.
Yeah, I mean, because the deck of many things is only what, like 20-something cards?
Oh, it's more than that.
Oh, damn.
No.
I haven't actually played in a campaign that has it.
About the same. I think they're about the same size, but like it's a lot.
That's a big deck of cards.
It took me a long time to do them. Completely, you couldn't shuffle them because they had the cellophane tape on them. You couldn't shuffle them; they'd stick together just from cling alone, and like it was a nightmare. But I did it.
I'm proud of you.
But I did it.
God, we're so spoiled now because you can go on to like printmaking services online and everything, upload card art, and they can just send you a deck of cards.
I'm fairly sure that you could do that then too. I was just broke.
Yeah, I mean that's where a lot of DIY crafty stuff comes out of. Like I made Beholder miniatures because I couldn't afford the like $50 to buy one.
Yeah.
Like I made a lot of D&D stuff. Like made my own character sheets, made my own other things. Mostly because I either couldn't afford the printing costs to have them printed or to buy pre-made ones.
Yep.
Like same thing with a lot of stuff. It comes out of necessity when you don't have a lot of money to rub together.
So I'm going to shift this a little bit because I feel like this is a really good branching off point for something I wanted to bring up. Because when I run games online, it's mostly because I'm broke. And I have international players. Mm-hmm. But also because I'm broke. I like to run games primarily on Discord.
Yeah.
Discord is wonderful for it.
It is.
But I also am almost entirely theater of the mind. So there are no miniatures. There is no like physical dice you can see. I very rarely will make a map. It's mostly just I tell you what the room looks like and you better remember it.
Yeah.
But that also lends to digital artists. Digital artists will likely draw their characters, or I'll draw their characters, or something like that, which is a nice little thing to do back and forth with each other. But the one thing that I do every single time in my Discord games, I like to make emoticons.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Sometimes I'll pay for the premium server thing to give them as many emoticons as I can potentially give them. Or like emojis. I'm sorry. I use emoticons because I come from an era where AOL Instant Messenger was a thing.
I was just about to say that. It's like that AOL fucking...
I'm sorry. I'm an ICQ girl at heart.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Sorry, emojis. That's the actual word. That's what the kids call it these days, right?
Oh, God.
Right. So I'll make... And I've done this for basically almost every group that I've run on Discord. I'll make tiny little, like, chibi faces. Mm-hmm. Just face only with, like, 10 reactions. Usually reactions custom to their characters. So if their character is more solemn, they're not going to get a crazy face, but they might have one exasperated face.
Yeah.
A lot of angry and disappointed faces and slightly irked.
Yeah, you tailor it to the characters.
If they're like super flamboyantly excitable all the time, they're extreme emotions, like all over the place. They will use that shit constantly.
It's so good.
It's a 100% success rate. I give them emojis, and the whole chat, either in reactions that you can peg on certain comments, we can put an emoji reaction to it. Mm-hmm. They'll use their character's face as a reaction, like they're responding in character. Or they will just spam in character chat with just that. That's how they discuss things with each other.
That's so good.
It's just little emotional faces. Mm-hmm. And it's so cute. It took me about a week to make them all.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, because if there's that many faces for that to go through a process, that's a lot of emojis.
It's a lot of emojis. But my God, is it worth it? And it enhances the play for them. It's something they remember.
Yeah, that's like the gift that keeps on giving.
Exactly. So even if you run an online game, it says like Roll20 especially lets you do custom assets and things. But if you're just on Discord, you can make that custom for them.
Yeah, there's no shortage of making DIY kind of things for your game or homebrew things for your game. There's so many different ways to do it.
So many. You can go all over the place with it. I don't use Roll20 personally. It's too finicky.
I'm getting used to it.
Yeah. It's something that specific DMs will get a lot of use out of and other DMs won't. Yeah,
like I'm having some troubles with it. I think it's a very useful tool that, unless you go for a lot of the paid versions and stuff, it does fight you a lot of the time. like has a strong limit on file size. There's also there are ways of going about it and using pre-made assets there. I've found if you want to make your own stuff, it's a little bit harder to integrate. But that being said, it's been incredibly useful for running a game that is like miniatures heavy.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would use it for a game that isn't, just because it feels like it uses a lot of bandwidth and it uses a lot of resources that, like, again, a theater of the mind game, even if you have integrated character sheets and stuff, like, I could likely run that all just over a voice client or something like Discord.
Yeah.
That being said, I have made so many custom maps and so many handouts for my players for the Descent into Avernus game that I run using 4th edition. I've had to make, because that's a game whose maps are like really tailor-made for theater of the mind. They're very sort of like widespread, and there's lots of finicky little rooms. 4E don't really play that way if you're using encounters and stuff. So I've had to make a lot of custom maps. Like I have custom sewers, custom alleyways. I've made an entire bakery map or an entire tavern map too.
Yeah.
And some of these are like hand drawn and then scanned in and then done digitally. Others are like, there's a lot of really good 4E maps from way back when that got used for dungeon tiles. I can just chop those up in Photoshop and like sort of like copy paste them into each other to make new maps.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I've seen some of your maps. Your maps are great.
Oh, thank you.
I really like them a lot. I get jealous a little bit because I just like theater of the mind. You don't get to use maps, and I see your maps, and I'm like, but what if I have maps though?
You gotta play more of my games because there's so many maps to go on.
It's so true. You just spend so much time, and I love the care. You can tell how much you care about your players and how much you care about the story. Not to say I don't care about my players.
No, you care a tremendous amount. Again, you made custom emojis for your entire group. Like, you care about them a lot.
I do. There's a lot you can do. Like, I want to try and cover all my bases of like different examples, because you and I run, especially online games, we run very differently.
We do, yeah. We have very different sort of DM styles.
I think your style is incredibly classic. When people think about what it's going to look like when they DM online, they think of you and how you do things, which is like having the maps, having the complete story done, having like you have a very structured approach to how you handle it.
I do, yeah.
That's not a bad thing. I tend to be a little bit, let's call it insane. Let's chaotic. I just want to make sure that because there are some people out there who are super, super intensely creative and have a hard time with structure like I do. Who might be hearing like, oh God, I have to make custom assets. Oh God, I have to do it. And might get overwhelmed by that. Whereas a theater of the mind approach might be better for them. I'm going to use the Discord example again, because I want to lay the foundation for these people to know that you can also be creative in different ways. With a Discord server, you can break it down into channels. So you can have a channel for a text channel for chatting. You have a text channel for in-character only. You can have a text channel for game information for them, and keep it all separate and organized. You can also create channels for character questions, character profile information, NPC information, with like dating style things. Like that's what I did. I had dating profiles for my characters.
Yeah, every NPC you had in one of your games had basically like dating sim style stats.
Yeah.
And also like rankings of like which character they liked best, what their thoughts were on other characters. Like that is a level of deep creative and very lore heavy.
Yes.
That is like so rewarding, and like as a player that's like really awesome to see.
You can also create a thing for if they make a base, you can have an entire separate tab for their base, and you don't have to draw. Use Pinterest if you need to get images for this, because it's just a private game. It's not like you're monetizing it. If you are monetizing it, don't use Pinterest without credit to the users. You can just create this entire world visually for them. And that in and of itself is a creative edge that you're giving your players. You're infusing a part of who you are as a DM and your own creativity in to enhance this world that they're living in. You can do that without needing to draw a map.
Yeah.
You can do that in different ways.
There are a lot. If you want to use maps, there's a ton of resources available to get free maps, to get maps that are public domain, to get maps that are available for sort of public use if you're running your own game. And if maps, like if you're, again, more of a text person, if you really want to focus on lore and story and character building, there are tons of ways to reward and sort of like to draw your players into your world using just that.
You can also encourage the players to be creative too.
Yeah.
You might have an artist in your group. That's completely feasible. There's a lot of artists in the D&D community.
I'm so blessed. Like, I don't know how I ever got this lucky. Almost half of my groups are made up of illustrators, and they're wonderful. Like, I do not deserve the wonderful things that they make for the games that I run.
I'm so jealous.
It's oh my god.
I'm so jealous.
It's the best feeling in the world.
Look at the thing Tucker made me, and I'm like, I can't believe you have Tucker in your game. How lucky are you?
I love Tucker's art so much.
Hi, Tucker. I know you listen to this. Hi, Tucker. I'm jealous that you're in Kyle's games.
But yeah, it's the same reason. Like, my friend Sam plays in a lot of my games,
yeah.
and after almost every session, Sam's usually either doodled or drawn something because he sketches while he plays. Because here's the thing: when I play games, I'm the exact same way.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not a very good D&D player because half the time I'm just like drawing on the back of a character sheet and like kind of paying attention.
The drawing makes up for it, though. DMs love that shit.
Yeah, I always handle it's like I missed this plot point and was bad in this combat, but look at this cool monster I drew. Look, I drew your character as they got squished by a boulder.
Miss DM, I wasn't paying attention, but I drew you a picture.
Yeah,
Works with me every time.
Yeah, but yeah, that's kind of how I play D&D. But yeah, it's wonderful, and you can encourage a lot of creativity from your players, whether it's keeping track of items and making itemized lists for the group, whether it's drawing, there are lots of ways to be expressive and creative.
I ran into a problem with one particular group where most of them weren't artists. None of them really drew. And they felt like they couldn't contribute. And they would tell me that. Like, they'd all pull me aside privately and be like, I feel bad that I can't... You're doing all this stuff creatively, and I just feel like I can't keep up with that. And I felt bad. Then I realized they're all writers.
Oh.
Everyone's creative in their own way. They're all writers. And so I was like, hey, write me fan fiction.
Oh my god, yeah.
Write me prose. Write me your backstory. I want a scene from this. Here's the prompt this week. Here's what you do. And oh my god.
I've had this done for me and one of my characters in the past by one of my friends. There is nothing better than having a player write a bit of in-world fiction or in-between story fanfic kind of stuff. It's so good.
But it also gives you so much stuff to use against them once they're actually in your game. Nothing's better than them going, hey, I wrote my character's backstory. And you're like, oh, you have a brother. Oh, you have a brother who defected? Huh, and I write that down.
God, that's so good.
It's so good. Having your players write for you will give you the most story that you could potentially ever pull from.
You get so much out of it.
You get so much content, and then they feel infused into the world because you use their story.
Yeah. Integrating what players write on the side into the game proper is such a good reward, and it's such a good way of developing out backstory kind of stuff.
I will say that it has been my experience now, time after time after time. Writers will always think that they're not as creative as artists. They will feel like they can't contribute as much as someone who draws. Convince them otherwise.
Yes.
Convince them otherwise because the writing is just as important.
It is. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So there you go. You can 100% foster that without needing to make a bunch of custom figurines or maps or things like that. There is a lot you can do. A whole lot you can do.
Yeah, I feel like because I write and I draw, but drawing I'm very slow when it comes to art. When I play in a few other people's games, I'll have rough sketches and things, but oftentimes I don't have enough to turn into, or enough time or enough motivation to really turn it into a really good piece that's going to be worth sharing online.
Yeah.
Doing even actual play kind of after reports and everything, writing something, sort of being creative for your dungeon master and for the group after the fact, it's such a nice thing to do.
You can also, and this is another thing that I did with someone who wasn't very good at either writing or art, had an ear for music.
Ooh.
And I was like, hey, can you make a playlist for this? Even though I make playlists too, because I'm a huge music nerd.
You are, yeah. But yeah, playlists is a really good way of expressing that.
They had a Spotify playlist for themselves, every single character, almost every ship that happened in the game, all the villains. Individual sessions got playlists.
Yeah.
And the players would just eat it up. They'd be like, oh, cool music. And then they'd all listen to it and just be hype for the next session. Or... It was amazing.
It's a wonderful way of being creative and being... Again, it's a really, really rewarding thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And it helps them connect to each other.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a player that's very good with music and you see that. Like they've made a playlist for their own character. Mm-hmm. Encourage them to make a playlist for the world and maybe each other's characters. They will have to talk to the other characters, the other players about their characters. Mm-hmm. They will have to talk to each other about that. They can bond over that. And if there's a certain amount of understanding between each other, it's like, oh, wow, you made this oh, wow, that's right. You got it just right. Mm-hmm. The amount of appreciation there will make them feel extra included.
It's so good. Like, you made a playlist, or you're continuing to make a playlist for our 5 Courses of Strahd game.
Oh, yeah.
And going through that playlist and listening to it, because I'm awful with music. Music's never as much been my jam, but, like, it's incredible listening through that playlist and seeing how, like, a lot of the songs on there line up with each session that we've played and the things that happened in it. It's so cool.
It's really good.
And it's incredibly rewarding.
Other options, you have encouraging them to make a Tumblr account or Pinterest. Oh, yeah. Pinterest board was actually my preference. Mm-hmm. Having them make a Pinterest board for their character. Put everything aesthetic that reminds them of their character in one board. Create a painting, essentially, using other people's images. Mm-hmm. Of your character and help people understand who they are. That's huge. A lot of players will gravitate towards that.
Oh yeah, because it's like, it's a wonderful way of expressing both your character and events in game in a really visual format that's incredibly easy to share
and very useful.
Yeah.
When you get an idea of, you can get very quickly understand how serious they are, how lighthearted they are, what path they're going to be taking, if they're a little bit edgy, if they're not. Mm-hmm. You can get a real clear view of this character immediately if you have like 4D images.
Oh, yeah.
To just describe them.
Also, as a boon to artists, like if you have your character, because like describing character outfits in fantasy games can be the pits sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Because like everyone has a different style and different idea of like, well, what does this fantasy clothing look like? Well, I'm wearing chainmail armor, but like, how does that work and what does that kind of look like? If you have a Pinterest board for your character with examples of like even like color palettes and stuff of your character, if at any point you're looking to like get a commission or something from an artist of your character, or even just share that with like an artist friend, oh my god, is that useful.
Very useful. Mm-hmm. Adding on to the Pinterest thing, with 2 of my games now that I ran online, I had a Pinterest board dedicated to stores.
Oh,
where
cool.
I had sub boards. You can make a board and then have sub boards underneath it. Excuse me. I had each board for every store. So if there was a fashion boutique where they could go and shop, mm-hmm. I had saved images of the things that were purchasable there.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I can be like, oh, you're in the store. And they're like, well, what's there for sale? And I just link it. I just throw the link in chat. And then you hear the, oh.
That's such a good way of doing that. Oh, my God.
It's an incredibly fast way to have an entire itemized list. You can add notes to things you repin. So that you can pin things to your boards.
Oh.
You can add custom notes. And in the notes, I'd have the price.
Oh, my God. Sorry, this is a small revelation for me. Because I'm like, next time I have, because in one of my dungeon games, I have a magic item book. Mm-hmm. Like it's a huge grimoire filled with lists of magic items that they can buy. I'm going to turn that into a Pinterest board instead of having just like a text like list of like prices and stats and other stuff. That's a way better way of doing that.
You can do all kinds of stuff like that on there.
And you can pull from any, because it's Pinterest, you can just pin all kinds of stuff and suddenly you have your own context for it.
Yes.
Oh man, that's good.
I will just put like as like a little note to this, like a little asterisk at the end of this. If you're doing this for a Twitch game and you plan on showing it, you do need to have the artist credit on everything.
You do. Please credit your artists and credit the creators.
If it's just like a personal home game, it doesn't matter as much. Although credit's lovely for all artists all times.
It is.
It's a little less like you have to have everything particularly pinpointed if it's just a private home game. But if you are showing this or have any kind of monetization on it or anything like that where it's a public showing, you definitely need to have credit for every artist. Pinterest is notoriously bad for having proper credit.
Yeah.
So if you're going to use it, you need to be responsible for having the credit for every artist you take from.
Yeah. Source your artists, credit them where credit is due, link their stuff.
Yes.
Like, I cannot stress that enough when it comes to, like, again, live play games or public games or Twitch games. Like, credit your artists, please.
It's a little more work, but the functionality of Pinterest alone will be useful for you. If you're willing to put in the extra work to do proper credit, it will be exceedingly useful for you.
Yeah.
Professionals use it all the time. Wedding planners, interior designers. I say this as somebody who's dabbled in both.
Yeah, I was about to say it's a wedding planner and interior designer.
Yeah. They use it for the industry, and you can use it for your games just the same way.
It's real good.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm trying to think if there's any other sort of like DIY craft, because I make maps a lot. I make all kinds of. I've made small custom miniatures in the past. Oh no, there's two I got a ton of use out of.
Yeah.
One, I made, so occasionally characters will go into dungeons and there will be like little prisons and stuff. Like I had little tiles I put down for prison cells and things. The thing I got the most use out of was a custom gibbet, or maybe it's pronounced gibbet. You know those like hanging cages that they put people in? In like when you see like a pirate movie and they have like a skeleton hanging from a place inside these like iron bars.
Yeah.
I think it's called a gibbet. I made one of those custom out of a small cardboard paper, like a toilet paper tube. Lacquered over it, painted it black. I cut out little slots in it and then made a bottom and made a removable top for it. And it fit like a D&D miniature perfectly.
Awesome.
So anytime they would go into dungeons, I would have just this little thing that I could put on a square and be like, yeah, there's a hanging gibbet here. There's like a small door that can be opened up to get them out of.
That's awesome.
And like it immediately made like prisons and things feel way more filled in. The other thing that I made that I'm remembering that I have pictures of somewhere, I made my own custom Modron minis.
Oh, yeah.
They were made in probably an hour. It was, again, a game that happened very, very quickly where it was like, hey, can you run a session this weekend? I'm like, yeah. Do you have like minis and stuff ready to go? And I was like, oh, no, I don't. Okay, what do I do? Using small bits of styrofoam cut into cubes, spheres, sort of pyramid kind of shapes. I was trying to think, it's like, what's a 3D triangle?
That's a pyramid.
That's a pyramid.
That's a pyramid, baby.
Yeah, using those, making little faces for them, basically drawn on with Sharpie, and then hot gluing googly eyes onto them. I clipped up a bunch of paper clips and made little moving limbs.
So cute.
Put onto like feet and legs and everything, and then hot glued those to cardboard bases. They didn't last long. Again, styrofoam falls apart real quick unless you protect it with like enamel or lacquer or resin or something. But they were adorable, and they were a really good way of coming up with like a really sort of visually interesting monster that like looked different from everything else on the table.
That's really cool.
It was really neat.
I'm really proud of you for doing that one. I remember when you showed me those. Those were ridiculously cute.
Yeah. Because yeah, like I gravitate towards creating and making stuff for games. Like I know it's not for everyone, and I don't want to say that it's something that's required for running tabletop games, because it's not. You can do a lot of stuff and you can reward and be creative in a variety of different ways. But making arts and crafts just always kind of spoke to me. And that's sort of how I express myself with the game.
Absolutely. I will interject for those who want to make tiny little like sets and things like that, but don't feel they're particularly crafty. Mm-hmm. So Michaels has a new thing that they've been doing for the past couple of years, where it's little fairy villages.
Oh, cute.
And it's tiny little miniatures, and they have like Halloween theme or Christmas theme.
Oh my god, yeah.
And Easter theme, depending on the holiday. Just get that.
Yeah. Listen, you could spend upwards of $500 at like Games Workshop or at another hobby store and everything, or like Reaper Miniatures or something, buying elaborate terrain and buying like custom plastic houses and things for your miniatures. Or you can go to Michael's and get a lot of other stuff for basically under $20.
If you have time, you can order them online from places that have much slower shipping but cost 2 cents a piece, you know.
Absolutely.
Like a certain AliExpress place you can potentially go to. But fairy villages, fairy houses, and things like that are trending in the craft world, have been for a year or two now. The 30, 40-year-old white women are making it. They have it in abundance, and it's way cheaper now.
I feel like 30 and 40-year-old white women and everything, they've been doing D&D without realizing it for a very long time.
They don't know it's D&D.
They're on some next level stuff They
don't know. It started with the Lemax villages, and it just went from there.
Oh, Lemax villages are so fun.
Lemax villages is a little too big for that.
A little bit.
Basically, the fairy villages is just a miniature Lemax village they can keep in a smaller area of the store.
Yeah.
I'm sure other hobby stores we won't mention because they're awful also have them. Don't buy them from there. Get them at Michael's.
Yeah, Michael's is going to be your best friend when it comes to this stuff. Plus, they're going to have the paints that you need to repaint them. If you want to go like hog wild on some glitter and stuff on that, go for it.
I want to also apologize to our European listeners because I don't know what the Michael's equivalent there is. I'm sure there is one.
There's got to be. I know there is one. I can't remember the name of it, but there is a chain of hobby stores in England and in other parts of Europe that is really good for that kind of stuff.
Please forgive me. I'm an American/Canadian. I don't know European stores.
I don't know either.
I just hobby store will have usually tiny little things.
Yeah, basically anywhere you can get like Elmer's glue, pom-poms, sketchbooks.
Anywhere you could get the stuff to make slime. Yeah. You can find stuff for miniature making.
So I will say from personal experience, as again, a person and a game master who adores oozes and slime monsters and stuff.
Yeah.
Don't use like slime on a tabletop grid kind of thing. You're asking for trouble. It's so messy. Oh my god, don't do it.
Unless you're into that.
Unless you're okay with the cleanup and everything. Like, because I did that at one point. There was an encounter I ran where I was like, I thought I was so clever and it was going to be amazing. And I was like, okay, so I've got these black pudding monsters. What am I going to do? Well, I could try and make this miniature out of hot glue and like paint it or dye it black. Or I could follow this like sketchy online tutorial and make like black colored slime and have that ooze around the table. No, if you make that stuff even slightly wrong, you will both ruin your map that you put it on. You will also ruin the coffee table that you put it on. It's not worth it.
Unless you follow tutorials for fluffy slimes. They don't stick as much.
Oh, that's true. A fluffy slime would be great.
Am I revealing that I'm a 30-year-old who watches slime videos a little too much right now?
Listen, they're great. I'm not judging.
ASMR slime videos, Kyle.
Oh, that with that crumble, that snap that they've got to it.
Folding the styrofoam beads into that shit. You know, that's me.
Listen, as ASMR goes, that's fantastic.
There you go.
I'm not judging.
There you go. I'm secretly a 13-year-old girl. I still have an easy bake oven. You know, that's me.
Oh no, but easy bake ovens are like that's the thing. I had maybe that's where a lot of the crafty stuff comes in me from childhood and everything. Like I had a creepy crawlers oven. That's the thing.
The boy easy bake.
Yeah. But that's the thing. You can't. It's not like making fruit snacks. You can't eat creepy crawlers.
A fucking crime.
Yeah. Because they look like tiny bug fruit snacks and everything. No, they're made of like weird off-brand glue. Like if you that they are totally toxic.
It's that it should have been gummy, and then we could be recommending them for the people who want to have bugs in their campaign to make gummy yummy bugs.
Yeah. Listen, a creepy crawlers oven, or I forget what they called it. It was a mold maker. It was a orange and green plastic box from the 80s and 90s that was literally only there so that kids could burn their fingertips off using the the heating tray things. That fucking it wasn't tin. It was like In my head, it was just like a huge like lead mold that you're absolutely getting like diseases from.
Probably. That's why you're not supposed to eat them.
Yeah, but no, it's just like that. The only thing that is designed for is to burn your fingertips off because it's so hot.
See, 80s and 90s just reminded me. I know why your slime thing didn't work. It wasn't Nickelodeon GAC.
Yeah.
You would have had so much of a better time if it had been GAC.
No, I've owned Nickelodeon GAC before. Like that stuff will still ruin some other things, or it will get ruined in the process by collecting just all the pet hair in the world, and then be the worst.
Isn't that just what a gelatinous cube does, though?
Oh God!
Isn't collecting animal hair in the sewers what they do?
All right, so aspiring dungeon masters, here we've learned something today. You really want to gross out your players? Next time you use a gelatinous cube, just describe it as being encrusted with hair.
Pet hair.
Oh.
You have to say pet hair. You can't just say anyone's hair. You say pet hair and everyone will have a visceral reaction.
Oh yeah, like I just curled up inside myself, just like, ugh.
It carries around the skulls of people. We've seen that.
Oh yeah, but
why wouldn't it have pet hair in it?
Okay, skulls is no problem. You see a half decomposed body inside that. That's not gross. I'm used to that. You describe it being, it's like, yeah, I collected all the gross pet hair from the floor.
Like a sticky hand.
Yeah, like, oh God. Yeah, that is, forget your scads and upon scads of flavor text describing this to try and horrify your players. Just describe it. So imagine one of those sticky hand toys from like a gumball type machine, only it's after you've used it for a couple of days and it's just encrusted with filth. That's what you're dealing with.
Remember when you were 10 and you had 3 siblings younger than you and you got a sticky hand from the quarter machine and then on day 3 you looked at it on your table? It's that. It's that. It's that.
Oh, God.
Well, I've just ruined your whole day.
No, you've given me a gift. I'm sad that so many of my players listen to our podcast because now I can't just fucking sneak this on them.
Well, I better stop before I ruin them even further. I'm so sorry. I love all of you, by the way, people in Kyle's game. And like everyone else in general, but especially people in Kyle's game. Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry I give him bad ideas. I'm so sorry. You guys deserve better from me.
No, you're improving the experience.
I'm sure they agree.
But yeah, it's something that's always been rewarding for me. Not slime and stuff like that, but making crafts and making DIY stuff for games. Yeah. Like, it brings me a lot of joy, and it's also, I've found, it makes the experience really cool for players.
Yeah, it does.
It shows you care.
And that's really, knowing your DM cares is going to transform the entire experience of the game.
It improves it so much. It's a little bit of effort, but it pays off so much. Oh my God.
Well, I think we've given them ideas or just gabbled a lot. One of the two.
Make small miniature airships for your players
out of toilet bowl wrap.
Yeah, just any cardboard you can find.
Anything.
Yeah, just throw some spray paint and some like textured paint on there. It's all good.
We're in the time of the Amazon delivery.
Yeah, I feel like cardboard is in abundance now.
Use all of those boxes and craft things.
It's worth it. Make your own, like, what was it called? What was the He-Man skull place that He-Man and all his He-Friends would hang out in?
You're going to get me in trouble for not knowing that off the top of my head. The Skeletor Fortress? I don't know.
Oh, no, I know, that's the thing. I know Skeletor. Skeletor's was Snake Mountain, I think.
I don't know.
He-Man, he had a skull home. It was
Skull House.
Skull House.
Skull House.
Castle Grayskull. That's what
close
it was.
enough.
Listen, that's...
Skull House is close enough.
Oh, God. But yeah, no, they're going to come from me, because I was a boy who grew up in that era of action figures and everything. I should have knew that right off the top of my head. I had no idea.
I can name you every Barbie from the 90s. I can't help
See, I think that's a step up. I can't name that.
Barbie had so many different variations, but she didn't have a skull house.
That would be a Barbie play that I would play, or I would definitely buy.
She would be an awesome necromancer.
Hell yeah. Necromancer Barbie?
I think she's actually been a necromancer. It's probably a collector doll. I'll have to find that. We're going off on a tangent. We need to stop. All good. We need to go away. We love you all. Thanks everyone for listening this week. We hope to have you. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week.
It's going to be fun.
We just went on Necromancer Barbie tangent. I don't
Listen,
know.
Necromancer Barbie could be its own episode. I'm telling you.
Cool. So yeah, take care of yourselves out there. Everybody stay safe, and we will talk to you next week.
See you.
Thanks for listening to Breakfast with Birch and Bat. We're supported by our very own store that you can find at birchandbat.com. We have tabletop adventure PDFs, gaming supplements for your ongoing games, and RPG-themed shirts, stickers, phone cases, mugs, and even more. As always, thank you for all your support, and we will see you next week.